Hello and good evening and welcome to this edition of Versus. Welcome back to the new year. Yes, episode 13 is ready to go, and boy, we have a great one for you. And we haven't been on since last year because we were waiting for some commercials to grace us with their presence. And now that we have some commercials to go with and get back into the swing of things, we're ready to go and look at two different interesting comparisons here. Well, competitors. How many of you collected model cars back in the day? Were you a Matchbox car collector? Or were you Hot Wheels? Or were you both? I was a little bit of both. If I had to choose between which one that was more supreme, just based on the history of the company, that's a tough one. Well, we're going to look at Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars tonight on episode number 13 of Versus. And we'll be back with a look at Matchbox right after these very important messages.
What do you think of when you think of Corvettes?
Corvettes, they've got exercise equipment to help us get into shape for spring.
Well, at the other Corvettes, you can get into all the latest shapes and suits for spring.
I love it. Corvettes, they've got gourmet appliances to help make me a great cook.
Well, the other Corvettes has fashions that will really whet your appetite.
Super.
The other Corvettes has fashion for everyone. Our TV game shoppers are winners in today's easy sportswear.
Hey, that's great.
Collectors of classics look sensational in classic trench coats.
It's just what I wanted.
Our record lovers love jazzy jean skirts.
Wow.
While photography buffs focus on our new, softer separates.
The other Corvettes, you don't have to spend a fortune to look like a million.
The fashion, shop the other Corvettes, shop the other Corvettes and Corvettes.
Nobody beats the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz.
Everybody's rushing to the hottest home entertainment sale ever. It's the Election Day sale at the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz on this Panasonic beepless remote answering machine. Near cost at $79.95. On this Panasonic 5-piece stereo rack system at cost $166. And on this Fisher stereo cassette breakaway, near cost at $77.
Nobody beats the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz.
Election Day sale at all 16 Wiz stores.
Some women lunch at the plaza, ski in San Moritz, and buy expensive furs every year. Some women just look that way, but they have one thing in common, the Ritz thrift shop. Some sell us their furs, others buy them. We've been handling the finest second-hand used furs for over 50 years, and some of the world's loveliest furs are here at a fraction of the original cost. See them at the Ritz thrift shop at 107 West 57th Street. You don't need a million to look like a million.
Oh, thank you.
Just 41 minutes to Bertrand Island Park, New Jersey's family amusement park. Always free admission for the entire family. 23 skill games, Kittyland, 15 major thrill rides, screaming Wildcat coaster, Speedway go-karts and more. Free admission 7 days weekly. 41 minutes from George Washington Bridge. Take exit 28 off Interstate 80 to the scenic shores of New Jersey's Lake Opatcong and Bertrand Island Park.
All right, it's time to look at Matchbox. Why not, right? Let's go ahead and swap them out. Do what we need to do here. Put this one down there and the big one down there. And get ready to look at the history of the Matchbox car, which the name originated in 1953. Yep. As a brand name of the British die-casting company Lesney Products, whose reputation was molded by John W. Jack Odell, Leslie Charles Smith, and Rodney Smith. Now, the name Lesney was a portmanteau of Leslie and Rodney Smith's first names. And their first major sales success was the popular model of Queen Elizabeth's II coronation coach, which sold more than 1 million models. Well, Leslie co-owner Jack Odell then created a toy that paved the way for the company's future success, which was designed for his daughter. Her school only allowed children to bring toys that could fit inside a matchbox. So Odell crafted a scaled-down version of the Leslie green and red road roller, and this toy ultimately became the first of the I-75 miniature range. A dump truck and a cement mixer completed the original 3 model release that marked the starting point for the mass market success of the Matchbox series. The company decided to sell the models in replica matchboxes, thus yielding the name of the series. Additional models continued to be added to the line throughout the decade, including cars such as an MG Midget TD, a Volhall Cresta, a Ford Zodiac, and many others. And as the collection grew, it also gradually became more international, including models of Volkswagens, a Citroën, and American makes. And to make such miniatures, the designers took detailed photographs of the real models, even obtaining some original blueprints. And this enabled them to make models with surprisingly high levels of detail despite the small scale. The size of the models allowed Matchbox to occupy a market niche barely touched by the competition, and the associated price advantage made the toys affordable and helped establish Matchbox as a generic word for small toy cars, whatever the brand. In the earliest years of the regular or I-75 series, well before the series actually numbered 75 models, Leslie was marketed and distributed by Moco, itself named after its founder, Moses Constant. Now, boxes in that era mentioned this with the text a Moco Leslie appearing on each. Leslie gained its independence from Moco in 1959 by buying out Moco's share in the joint enterprise, leading to a period of growth both in sales and in size. Early models did not feature windows or interiors. They were made entirely of metal and were often about 2 inches in length or 5 centimeters. By 1968, Matchbox was the biggest selling brand of small die-cast model cars worldwide. And by this time, the average model in their collection featured plastic windows, interiors, tires, often with separate disc wheels, and occasional accessories, spring suspensions, opening parts, and was about 3 inches or 7 centimeters long. Some even featured steering, including the pressure-based auto steer system debuting in 1969. And the line was very diverse, including lorries, buses, tractors, motorcycles, and trailers, as well as standard passenger cars. The 3 dominant brands in the world at the time, all British made, Dinky, Matchbox, and Corgi, they were very successful. Each had its own market niche and its own strong reputation, while innovations and advances by one were adopted by the others within a matter of a few years. Each also expanded to some extent into the other's territory, though this never seemed to seriously affect the sales of any brand's core series. As part of Leslie's expansion activities, 4 further diecast model ranges were introduced during the 50s and 60s. The models of yesteryear, introduced in 1956, were renditions of classic vehicles from the steam and early automotive eras, and these were often about 3.5 to 4 inches in length. Accessory packs were also introduced in 1956 and included petrol pumps, garages, and the like. Major picks, which were larger scale models, often of construction vehicles, were added in 1957. And the king size series of larger scale trucks and tractors was added in 1960 and was diversified from 1967 onwards to include passenger car models in a scale similar to that used by Corgi and Dinky. Major packs had been absorbed into the king size range by 1968. The main focus at Matchbox continued to be their smaller cars. Other brands, including Husky and slash Corgi, Junior, Budgie, and Cigar Box, attempted to compete with Matchbox, but none were particularly successful until American toy giant Mattel introduced the revolutionary low friction racing wheels on its Hot Wheels line of cars. Now, these models, although less true to scale and often featuring fantasy vehicles, were attractive, painted in bright metallic colors and fitted with racing style mag wheels and slick tires, and were marketed aggressively and with numerous accessory products, such as racetrack sets and the like. The Hot Wheels line often featured models that were decidedly American. In 1969, a second competitor based in the US, Johnny Lightning, entered the market, and the bottom effectively fell out of Lesney's US sales. At the same time, the other major market in the UK was also under attack by the competitors. Lesney's response to this was relatively quick, but not quick enough to avoid major financial worries by creating the Superfast line. This was effectively a transformation of the 1969 line to include low friction wheels, at first narrow, since the company needed time to retool the series to accommodate wide tires, often accompanied with new colors. The result was, at first, a strange but interesting line of fast wheeling cars, trucks, and trailers, basically complete. In 1970, racing track sets and the like were also released to allow children to race their cars. And starting in 1970, and particularly in 71, new models appeared with wider tires. And older models, including trucks still in the line, were retooled to fit slicks. The king size range was similarly updated, including a division into Super Kings, mostly trucks, but also with mag wheels, and Speed Kings, the cars. A short lived series of rechargeable electric cars called Scorpions was released as well, and to compete with similar products from Hot Wheels, the Sizzlers and Corgis, or the Electro Rockets. But by the mid 1970s, Matchbox was again a force on the world market, having completed the transition and having even updated its line to include some fantasy vehicles. The I-75 series was also amended to include the Rolomatics, featuring mechanical parts that moved when the vehicle was moved, and Streakers, the latter an attempt to compete with Hot Wheels' newest innovation, tampo printing on the vehicle itself. In an attempt to reap more benefits from the regained popularity of the Matchbox brand, our last period of great expansion started with the introduction of multiple new lines, including the Skybusters range of aircraft, including current and historical private, commercial, and military planes, Battle King's military models, Sea King's naval models, and Adventure 2000 science fiction models, and the two-pack series, which revisited the traditional Matchbox idea of a model and an associated trailer. Unfortunately, early marketing concepts of metallic painted tanks and bright colored ships were not consistent with the market demands. And the models, many of which were quite well made for the money, were generally not successful. Second editions of the Battle Kings and Skybuster series were painted in more realistic colors and were well received, but by this time, general economic factors were seriously affecting the ability of the company to make a profit on toys manufactured in England. Of these series, only the Skybusters and to some extent the two packs survived over time. The Convoy series of articulated truck trailers, mostly American, was an offshoot of the two packs line and continues under various guises to this day. A rather simple development in this period, as much philosophical in nature as product related, initiated a revolutionary change in the marketplace. The Matchbox brand had become the most widely collected of all die-cast toy lines. See below Matchbox collectors. In the 1970s, Lesney began to seek contact with collectors, sending representatives to collectors' meets, providing information to the various collectors' clubs, and informally surveying collectors' interest. This resulted at first in the creation of several models for collectors, such as a yesteryear model, the black Y1 Ford Model T. The success of the decision led the company to place models of commercial vehicles in the yesteryear line. Two vans at first, a Talbot and another Model T, which were tampo printed with period advertising for brand named items such as Lipton's tea, Coca-Cola, or Suzy. These models were the first commercial vehicles in the series since the 1950s. The concept was quickly expanded to include limited editions of models made for specific countries, Arnott's Biscuits in Australia, Sunlight Cefe in Germany, and at the specific request of companies such as Nestle's Milk, Tasty Bread, and Harrods Department Store. This aspect of the business, so called promotionals, had existed since the 1960s, but had established itself firmly in the company's culture in the 1970s with numerous models, particularly of a 1 to 75 model, the number 17 London bus. Immediately, it became evident that special toy, low volume models of this nature were highly desirable from both the sponsor and the collector's perspective, as well as being profitable for Matchbox. The market expanded rapidly, leading to increased licensing as well as the development of models no longer aimed at all at the children's toy market, but rather at the higher margin premium segment. Due to more economic climate in the United Kingdom at the time, then to the lack of success of the Matchbox brand, even though all of the core ranges continued to sell strongly, the company was in difficult financial straits by the end of the 1970s, and Matchbox suffered in the same way as its British competitors. Following in the footsteps of Meccano, Dinky, just a year before Matoy, Corgi, Lesney became bankrupt in June of '82 and went into receivership. The Matchbox brand name, some tooling, molds, and other assets were then sold to Universal Toys and David Ye. Some of the Matchbox tooling became property of Jack Odell, who continued to market Matchbox yesteryear-like products under the Lido, or Odell's last name in reverse, that brand. But essentially, Lesney and Matchbox had been sold to Ye and his group, and Ye reorganized Lesney and renamed the group Matchbox International Ltd., with Ye as chairman and Jack Forcelletto as president. Ye took the group public on the New York Stock Exchange in 1986 with a successful IPO. And although the company was no longer British owned, limited production continued in England until the mid 80s, reusing many of the old Lesney castings, but most production and tooling was moved to Macau. And it was during this period that Matchbox acquired the rights to the venerated Dinky brand, perhaps the mother of all toy car collectibles, and united two of the most important names in diecast under one roof. New models were created, sometimes dies were also bought from competing companies, and the Dinky collection was born. Dinky models tended to be of more recent classics, particularly the 50s, and while yesteryears tended to concentrate on older vintages, and it was also during the Universal era that the Matchbox collectibles concept was developed. And because of high labor costs and the lack of enough skilled workers in Hong Kong and Macau, Universal decided to outsource its die casting to mainland China. In April of '84, the first Hong Kong Shanghai joint venture toy company called Shanghai Universal Toys Company Ltd. Well, Ye was the Hong Kong party, and it was established in Minhang, Shanghai. And while the Shanghai Toys and Import and Export Company, the Shanghai Shangxi Investment Company, the Bank of China, and Asian Holdings were the Chinese shareholders, the CJV contract was signed off with 20-year period of validity. 1985 saw the first batch of Matchbox toys, which had China cast on the base. Dies were imported to Shanghai from Macau until the early 90s, when Macau finally ceased producing Matchbox toys and moved its production to the Philippines, Taiwan, and Thailand. No dies were designed by SUTC, which confined itself to decal painting, assembling, and packing. Accompanying its metal casting, SUTC also had its plastic kits and components factory called Shanghai Universal Plastic Toys Company, and the Motor City series, Matchbox PK series, and many plastic components were produced there between the late 80s and mid 90s. Meanwhile, Universal also outsourced its die casting capabilities in southern China. The Young Tai Toys Company produced Matchbox toys under license from Universal, but without fixed assets or investment. Well, by 92, Universal was also seeking a buyer, and in May of 92, it sold the brand to Tyco Toys, the toy division of which was bought out in turn by Mattel in 97, uniting Matchbox with its longtime rival Hot Wheels under the same corporate banner. Under Mattel, the name Matchbox International Ltd. Was terminated. The buyout of Mattel was greeted with considerable trepidation by the Matchbox collectors community, and the rivalry between the Hot Wheels and Matchbox brands was not only a battle fought by the companies, collectors of each of the brands felt strongly about the qualities of their brand of choice. For the typical Matchbox collector, Hot Wheels were inferior in scaling and model choice, making them less desirable. There were fears that Mattel would either impose a Hot Wheels style philosophy on the Matchbox line or actually fold the Matchbox line into the Hot Wheels series. Early concerns of this nature by collectors were countered by assurances from Mattel that Matchbox would continue to develop its own product line independently from Hot Wheels, and that it was intended that Matchbox represent more realistic and traditional vehicles, while fantasy ones would be placed firmly in Hot Wheels territory. And to demonstrate the latter commitment, some very realistic Hot Wheels Caterpillar models were actually rebranded to Matchbox, although that did not assuage concerns about the strength of the former assurance. In 2002, to celebrate its 50th anniversary, Skybusters made a comeback, but with Continental Airlines as the only major airline to sponsor the product. In 2003, Matchbox came out with the line's special edition cars. Breaking with his commitment in the 90s, Mattel revamped the Matchbox line almost completely in 2003, introducing Ultra Heroes, a series of fantasy vehicles as part of a Hero City theme. Matchbox collectors were appalled, and the market didn't respond. The toys proved to be unpopular, and the line was soon discontinued. Next year, Matchbox, with a new team in charge based in El Segundo, California, started a return to the company's roots by selling realistic, well-detailed models, most of which were based on real prototypes. Although mostly of American cars or brands well known on the American market, the reappearance of the pre-2001 Matchbox logo, albeit with its classic quotation marks, signaled the return to original philosophy. To signal the seriousness of the venture and its commitment to the brand, Mattel introduced a new second 1 to 75 series, parallel to the standard range, celebrating the 35th anniversary of Superfast models that were packaged in model-specific blister packs containing not only the model, but also individual traditional-style retro boxes, harking back to the Superfast boxes from about 1970. All castings were of realistic vehicles, and some 1969 castings were reactivated for inclusion in the range. The series was strictly limited in production volume, sold at a premium price, and was a great success. Further Superfast series were released in 2005 and 06 and continued again in 2019 and 2020. The Superfast series was later discontinued for 2021 and was replaced by the similar Matchbox collector line, which are collector-focused vehicles in 1950s styling retro packing. These vehicles have features which are not present on standard cars, such as opening parts and two-piece wheels with rubber tires, and increased detailing and decorations on the cars. Also in 2005, certain yesteryear castings, which had been released during the Tyco early Mattel era as part of the Muscle Car series of Matchbox collectibles, were re-released in 71 style retro packaging and retro wheels of Super Kings, considered by many to be a strange name choice since models of the nature had been called Speed Kings in the 70s. Following the Hero City fiasco, the name being dropped in late 2005 in favor of MBX Metal, Mattel showed interest in reviving the Matchbox brand. However, since Matchbox Collectibles Inc. was shut down, Mattel's interests have always been concentrated on very few series of the Matchbox legacy, 1 to 75, the Skybusters, the Convoys, and to some extent the 2-packs concept, although now sold under a different name, Hitch and Haul. And although small numbers of Super Kings in yesteryears were released at times, no new castings were created. Battle Kings reappeared on the market in 06, not as king-size models, but rather as a name of military-oriented 2-pack style sets of regular-size models. The Dinky name has effectively been reduced to a few rebranded Matchbox 1 to 75 cars on the international market, normal models with Dinky Tampo printed on the base plate, and no further investment in dies or tooling was made. It appeared that the classic brand, once saved by Matchbox, will be allowed by Mattel to languish or die once again. In 2019, Matchbox launched the Moving Parts line, which are vehicles that incorporate opening features such as bonnets and doors. Some vehicles in the series harken back to older Lesney castings, such as the Volkswagen Type 3 and Pontiac Grand Prix, and these vehicles usually retail for twice the amount of the standard Matchbox car. And you could also finally see the green strategy, which was a Tesla Roadster in April 15th of 2021, and the pledge for by 2030 is that all of the Matchbox makes their cars and packaging out of 100% recycled materials. Pretty good stuff. And there you have it, friends. The look, the long look at Matchbox in all of its glory. There you have it. We'll be back with Hot Wheels right after these very important messages.
You're invited to my son's 21st birthday party. Good food, good people. Our neighbor, Bonnie.
Am I weird? Nah.
A genius, son, Herschel.
Take human bites.
My honey, Lucille.
I'm not hungry. I'll just pick.
My son's friend from Harvard and his lovely
Come on
sister.
to you. Happy birthday.
And a guest of honor, my Ivy League son. It's going to be some party.
Gemini, on Broadway at the Little Theater. It's a smash.
Everything must go now.
Apparel for the entire family, 50% off.
All toys, all bikes, 50% off.
The final countdown has begun.
Only days made.
Every Bradley's going out of business.
Everything is 40 to 70% off.
But hurry.
The doors are closing forever.
Any missed days, Bradley's will be gone forever.
Don't miss your last chance to shop Bradley's.
Hey, 40 to 70% off.
For Bradley's and sale our history.
ELJ 95.5 FM, New York's best rock. Caring about you and the music. WPLJ 95.5 FM, New York's best rock.
Cats, the #1 family musical in America. Cats, the world's most thrilling theatrical event. Cats, the magic, the mystery, the memory will live forever. Cats, the 7-time Tony Award winner, the once-in-a-lifetime experience, the most exciting family musical. In a word, Cats at the Winter Garden Theater. Call Telecharge 212-239-6200.
Every day's a sale day at Mays.
Proctor Silex makes Mother's Day gift-giving easy at Mays. Choose a Proctor Silex 4-slice toaster with Selectronic control for perfect toasting, or a Proctor Silex automatic drip coffee maker that can switch from brew to keep warm. Now $16.99. Or a Proctor Silex toaster oven broiler, ideal for baking broiling and toasting. Save $10, now $34.99.
Every day's a sale day at Mays.
Look up in the sky! It's a bird!
It's a plane! Crazy Eddie, strange visitor who came to us with prices and selection far better than that of other men. Crazy Eddie, who has changed the course of home entertainment, built a mighty chain of superstores with his bare hands, and who, disguised as this annoying television announcer, fights a never-ending battle for service, selection, and prices that are insane.
All right, let's take a look at Hot Wheels and all of its history. Well, the original Hot Wheels were made by Elliot Handler. Now, Handler discovered his son Kenneth playing with Matchbox cars and decided to create a line to compete with Matchbox. Hot Wheels were originally conceived by Handler to be more like hot rod cars, customized, modified, or even caricature, caricaturized. Thank you. or the fantasy cars, often with big rear tires, superchargers, flame paint, jobs, outlandish proportions, hood blowers, etc. As compared to Matchbox cars, which were generally small-scale models of production cars, he began producing the cars with assistance from fellow engineer Jack Ryan. The Flame logo was designed by Rick Irons, an art director working at Mattel at the time. The first line of Hot Wheels cars, known as the original Sweet 16, was manufactured in 1967, and these were the first of the Red Line series, named for their tires, which had a red pinstripe on their sides. There were 16 castings released, 11 of them designed by Harry Bentley Bradley, with assistance from Handler and Ryan. The first one produced was a dark blue custom Camaro. Bradley was from the car industry and had designed the body for the full-size Dodge Diora concept car and the custom fleet side, based on his own customized 66 El Camino. In addition to the cars themselves, Mattel produced a racing track set, sold separately. Though it would be updated throughout the years, the original track set consists of a series of bright orange road sections pieced together to form an oblong circular racetrack, with one or sometimes two superchargers. Faux service stations, though, which cars passed on the tracks, featuring battery-powered spinning wheels, which would propel the cars along the tracks. Hot Wheels' use of wide, hard plastic tires created much less friction and tracked more smoothly than the narrow metal or plastic wheels used on contemporary Matchbox cars. Hot Wheels were designed to roll easily and at high speeds, which was a great innovation at the time. The Hot Wheels brand was a staggering success. Excuse me. The series completely disrupted the industry for small die-cast models from 68 onward, forcing the competition at Matchbox and elsewhere to completely rethink their concepts and to scramble to try to recover lost ground. Harry Bentley Bradley did not think that would be the case and had quit Mattel to go back to the car industry. When the company asked him to come back, he recommended a good friend, Ira Guilford. Now, Guilford, who had just left Chrysler, quickly accepted the job of designing the next Hot Wheels models. Some of Hot Wheels' greatest cars, such as the Twin Mill and Splitting Image, came from Ira Guilford's drawing board. The Twin Mill was introduced in '69 and was used to create the company's first full-scale replica car in 2001. The success of the 1968 line was solidified and consolidated with the 1969 releases, with which Hot Wheels effectively established itself as the hottest brand of small toy car models in the USA. Splitting Image, Torero, Turbofire, and Twin Mill were part of the Show and Go series and are the very first original in-house designs by Hot Wheels. The initial prototypes of the Beach Bomb were faithful to the shape of a real VW Type 2 bus and had two surfboards sticking out the back window in a nod to the VW's perceived association with the surfing community and the slang term for a person who spends much time surfing, a beach bum. During the fledglingly Hot Wheels era, Mattel wanted to make sure that each of the cars could be used with any of the play sets and stunt track sets. Unfortunately, testing showed that this early version, now known among collectors as the Rear Loader Beach Bomb, or RLBB, was too narrow to roll effectively on Hot Wheels track or be powered by the supercharger, and was too top heavy to negotiate high speed corners. Hot Wheels designers Howard Reese and Larry Wood modified the casting, extending the side fenders to accommodate the track width, as well as providing a new place on the vehicle to store each of the plastic surfboards. The roof was also cut away and replaced by a full-length sunroof to lower the center of gravity, nicknamed the side loader by collectors. This was the production version of the Beach Bomb. The rear loader Beach Bomb is widely considered the holy grail or ultimate pinnacle of a series of Hot Wheels collection. And an unknown number were made as test subjects and given to employees. A regular production Beach Bomb may be worth up to $600, depending on condition. Market prices on RLBBs, however, have easily reached a five-figure plateau ranging from $70,000 to $120,000. And the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles had a pink RLBB in its Hot Wheels exhibit, displayed alone on a rotating platform under glass. The Hot Wheels Collectors Club released a new updated version of the rear-loading Beach Bomb in 2002 as a limited edition. The 1970s were a very successful year for Hot Wheels, so Mattel came up with a new advertising slogan for the cars: Go with the winner. 43 new cars appeared that year, including the Sizzlers and the Heavyweights. Those were lines. Howard Reese, who worked with Ira Guilford, was tired of designing cars, and he wanted to work on the major Matt Mason action figure toy lineup. Reese had a good friend by the name of Larry Wood, whom he worked with at Ford designing cars. When Wood found out about Hot Wheels at a party Reese was holding, Reese offered him the job of designing Hot Wheels models. Wood accepted, and by the end of the week, Wood was working at Mattel, where his first design was the Tri-Baby. Larry Wood retired in 2019 after over 40 years of designing cars. Another designer, Paul Tam, joined Wood and Guilford, and Tam's first design was the Whipped Creamer. Tam continued to work for Mattel until 1973. Among the many fantastic designs Tam thought up for Hot Wheels, some of the collector's favorites include Evil Weevil, a Volkswagen Beetle with two engines, Open Fire, an AMC Gremlin with six wheels, the Six Shooter, another six-wheeled car, and the rare Doubleheader, co-designed with Larry Wood. The year 1970 introduced the Snake and the Mongoose, manufactured rivalry between two professional drag racers calling themselves the Snake and the Mongoose for the purposes of publicity. This was notably drag racing's first major non-automotive corporate sponsor and the beginning of the NHRA's booming popularity with large budget teams and championships. 1970 also introduced the first Silver Series, which contained three silver-painted models, the Boss Hoss, the Heavy Chevy, and the King Cuda, which were only obtainable through a mail-in offer that included a membership to the Hot Wheels Club. These three cars featured supercharged engines, featured large roots blowers without hoods, and open exhaust headers. And after the style of drag racing cars of the era, popular among children, these silver cars were considered faster than the rest of the Hot Wheels lineup because they were supposedly heavier than the other gravity models, but the accuracy of this claim has never been tested under scientific conditions. However, 72 and 73 were slow years. Only 7 new models were made in 72, and of the 24 models appearing for 73, only 3 were new models. Also, the cars changed from Mattel's in-house Spectra Flame colors to mostly drab solid enamel colors, which mainstream Hot Wheels cars still use today. And due to low sales and the fact that the majority of the castings were not reused in later years, the 72 to 73 models are known to be very collectible. In 74, Hot Wheels introduced its Flying Colors line and added flashy decals and tampo printed paint designs, which helped revitalize sales. And as with the lower friction wheels in 68, this innovation was revolutionary in the industry, and although far less effective in terms of sales impact than in 1968, was copied by the competition who did not want to be outmaneuvered again by Mattel product strategists. Then in 77, the red line wheel was phased out, with the red lines no longer being printed on the wheels. This cut costs, but also reflected that the prototypical red line tires, popular on high speed rated automotive tires during the era of muscle cars and polyglass tires, were no longer popular. During this period, there was a trend away from the wild hot rods and fantastic cars and a move to more realistic cars and trucks like the competitor Matchbox. In 1981, Hot Ones wheels were introduced, which had gold painted hubs and claimed to have thinner axles for greater speed, along with additional suspension compliance that older production Hot Wheels lacked. Ultra Hot Wheels were introduced in 1984 and looked something like the cast alloy wheels found on a 1980s era high trim Renault Fuego or a Mazda 626. With three parallel dark lines cutting diagonally across the flat chrome face of the wheel, all three broken in the center to form six individual shorter lines. These new Ultra Hots claimed further speed improvements, and Hot Wheels started offering models based on the 1980s era sports and economy cars, like the Pontiac Fiero or Dodge Omni O24, in addition to their typical hot rod and muscle car styling offerings. In 1983, a new style of wheel called Real Riders was introduced, which featured real rubber tires. Despite the fact that they were very popular, the Real Riders line was short lived because of high production costs. In the late 1980s, the so called Blue Card Blister Pack color scheme was introduced, which would become the basis of Hot Wheels colors still used today. Original blister packs were red and yellow. Two other innovations were introduced briefly in Hot Wheels cars in the 80s: thermal color change paint and rotating crash panel vehicles, or the crack ups. The former was able to change color on exposure to hot or cold water, and there was an initial release of 20 different cars available as sets of 3 vehicles. The latter were vehicles with a panel that, on contact, would rotate to reveal a reverse side that appeared to be heavily dented. Variations in crash panels included front, rear, and side panels, the last of whose mechanism has proven to be the most durable. In the 80s, Hot Wheels had gotten into a controversy with General Motors' Chevrolet Motors division, and in 82, the Chevrolet Corvette had ended the curvaceous Mako Shark body style that had been in production for almost 15 years, and GM announced that the Corvette would be redesigned. Then in 83, Chevrolet started to produce the all-new C4 Corvette, but had assembly line problems, which pushed production back 6 months, causing GM's marketing department to label all 83s as 84s once they got production perfected. So it would seem to the public that the all-new C4 Corvette came out early rather than late. But Hot Wheels saw what the new model of Corvette was going to look like before GM's official unveiling, and they designed a diecast version of the 1984 Corvette. GM was angered and almost pulled its licensing with Mattel, but this controversy helped Corvette enthusiasts see what the new Corvette was going to look like. The 1984 Corvette production ran for 1.5 model years, covering half of the remaining 1983 model year and ending on time for the 1985 model year. In conjunction with Epix Software, Mattel released a computer game edition of Hot Wheels for various 8-bit platforms in 85 as part of the Computer Activity Toy Series. Then you have the collection number era, the treasure hunt era, and going into the 2000s, You had the Hype Mite and the Fright Bike. They celebrated their 35th anniversary in 03. They unveiled the Hotline 100 in 2004. In 2005 and 06, they continued with new extreme casting, the Highway 35. In 08, they had 36 new models released. 2009 and 2010, 42 models, 12 treasure hunts, 12 stack stars, 24 mystery cars, 10 segments, a series of 10 cars, and introduced the IndyCar series. 2010, they had 244 cars released, 247 in 2012, 250 in 2013, 250 in 2014. The 2016 lineup was similar to that of 2015 and 2014 in terms of segments. And in the present, from 2017 all the way, and including in 2018, they celebrated its 50 years. I mean, you look at this and you say to yourself, my goodness. Last year in October, the Formula One announced a new multi-year partnership with Hot Wheels. So they'll come up with an F1 car for its release this year. That's the last thing that they did. Wow. My goodness. What a history for Hot Wheels. And it just keeps getting better and better and more interesting as we go along. Well, that's going to do it for this show and this edition of Versus. This is episode number 13. And I'm going to quickly show you what I'm going to be sending out to everybody here. And this going back. So you quickly saw that pie chart. What you guys are going to do is you're going to vote. And that link, you go to that link, you cast your vote for either Matchbox or Hot Wheels, whichever one you think reigns supreme as the most popular toy car model. Okay? And we'll give you those results when we come back next time on episode number 14 with two more looks or two more interesting competing companies vying for who reigns supreme on Versus. I'm Jason DeCanio. Thank you very much for this long edition. We'll see you the next time. And remember, to be honest, be real, and keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. Good night from Jay's All TV and Sports Network. Bye-bye.